Dr. Peterson, a lot of what you say really resonates with me, and so I listen to it quite a bit. But sometimes I feel as though you take the position that these people who are concerned about sexism, racism, and other kinds of discrimination are a bunch of whiners. And I wonder what you really feel about that and how you would address that issue.
Oh, I think it's true. I mean, it's not that I don't think that there are forms of arbitrary prejudice that are counterproductive. Obviously, that's the case, and I think that that's detrimental to everyone. I mean, it would be wonderful to build a society where people were invited and encouraged to participate based on their level of skill in relationship to the required tasks, right? That's what we'd want. And there are arbitrary barriers, but the victim culture that's been generated on the university campuses is not only unwarranted in my estimation, given how much better things are, say, in the United States on the sexism and racism front than, say, 50 years ago or 40 years ago or 30 years ago or 20 years ago. There's been unbelievable improvement. And not only that, the emphasis on microaggressions and safe spaces and interference with freedom of speech are definitely making students less resilient rather than more resilient. I mean, every psychotherapist worth his salt knows that, because the way that you help people overcome their anxieties is by exposing them voluntarily to things that they're afraid of and are disgusted by. And it's the core, apart from getting your story straight, it's actually the core of all successful psychotherapies. And so by protecting students, there isn't anything you can do that would make them less resilient than what's being done in the universities. And Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff in their book, Coddling of the American Mind, laid that out pretty nicely. The American Psychological Association and the American Psychiatric Association should have put out statements in this regard years ago, because everyone knows, if they're trained properly, that this is just not how you go about doing it. That doesn't mean that if you're concerned with arbitrary discrimination, that somehow makes you whiny. Like, I don't believe that, because discrimination is real and it's pointless, it's harmful when it occurs. How do we address it?
As a society.
I think we are addressing it, first of all, because we're much less prejudiced than we were like at any other point in known history. So that's the first thing, is that things have improved at a rate that's so dramatic that it's almost unbelievable. But the way I think that we improve it is that we crush it out inside our individual souls. You know, for me, that's why I concentrate on the individual. Organizing ourselves into tribes and making that our paramount identity, and then teaching students that the appropriate way to view history is as the battleground between identity groups is just a reversion to tribalism. And that's like, whenever a society reverts to tribalism, all that happens is that violence breaks out. Obviously, because tribal groups are violent, and if you can't speak between your tribes because they're so clearly demarcated and there's no communication, all there's left is violence. And so I just don't see that as, I mean, even if the people, let's give 50% of the people who are complaining about discrimination their due as people who are genuinely concerned. Their solution is inappropriate. All it's going to do is cause more trouble. And the idea that, you know, there shouldn't be a uniting narrative, I think that's completely absurd, because it's a uniting, we're all here and we're all peaceful at the moment, despite all our pathologies, because there's a uniting narrative. Everyone knows what they're doing here. And so everyone acts in a manner that allows everyone to predict each other. And that's why we're peaceful, because we're all half crazy, you know, and there's lots of times we're not peaceful. You need those uniting narratives, and they have to be superordinate to the group identity. And
we all look inside ourselves, every single one. Society should say, everybody, look at yourself carefully and see if you're doing discrimination. And if you are being discriminatory, stop it.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it's not just discriminatory. I'm sure that, you know, my sense is that the average person, myself included, has more than enough sins on their conscience to keep themselves busy polishing themselves up for the rest of their life. And so I think that's a really good place to start, because, you know, you take the damn responsibility on yourself. And if you're looking outside for someone to blame, then that's the first sign that there's probably something wrong. And it's not like I don't know that some people have it rough. Some people have it rough, and it's because of external things that have happened to them. But their best bet still is to take the responsibility for fixing that onto themselves.